Most men wake up every single day playing a game they were never meant to win, completely unaware that the financial rules they've been taught were explicitly designed to keep them dependent. We are conditioned to believe that trading our finite time and energy for a predictable paycheck is the definition of safety. But in reality, it is a beautifully engineered trap. The uncomfortable truth is that the modern economic system doesn't want you to achieve true financial sovereignty. It thrives on your consumer debt, your constant distractions, and your silent compliance. Every day you spend blindly following the traditional passive path is another day you willingly hand over the steering wheel of your destiny to a machine designed to keep you exhausted and broke. You are rapidly running out of your most precious, non-renewable asset, your time, while the walls of the matrix close in deeper around your potential. Right now, you stand at a defining crossroads where you can either continue to fund someone else's empire as a passive cog, or you can break the code, accept the brutal reality of how wealth actually works, and architect an unshakable ecosystem of absolute personal freedom. Countless men take immense pride in their grueling work ethic, completely unaware that their relentless sweat is funding a system engineered to keep them dependent. They wake up early, skip sleep, and sacrifice their youth, believing that working harder is the singular path to freedom. Without understanding the hidden rules of money, this raw labor is simply collected as a compliance tax by institutions that profit directly from a man's exhaustion. True leadership over your destiny demands that you question why your maximum effort yields minimum personal sovereignty. When a hardworking man remains financially uneducated, his baseline psychology defaults to trading more hours for survival rather than building an infinite asset. A man's willingness to labor for endless hours is often his greatest badge of honor, yet this tireless devotion becomes a psychological trap when traded exclusively for survival. We celebrate the exhausting hustle, forgetting that trading finite time for a fixed paycheck is a losing game. When a hardworking man pours all his energy into an ecosystem that only rewards his physical presence, he remains trapped in a finite illusion. Breaking free requires shifting that relentless work ethic away from a temporary wage and toward the deliberate architecture of an infinite asset. By channeling his discipline into a self-sustaining system, he claims true sovereignty. A hardworking man often falls into the trap of using his hard-earned money to buy immediate validation for his grueling sacrifices. He grinds for endless hours, then trades the fruits of that brutal labor for material symbols of success designed to exploit his exhaustion. This deceptive cycle of consumerism tricks him into believing his effort has meaning, when it actually returns his power right back to the system. True fulfillment begins when a man redirects his relentless labor away from fleeting status and toward funding his own just cause. By rejecting the cheap validation of immediate rewards, he preserves his hard work as strategic capital for absolute sovereignty. A hardworking man often measures his grueling sacrifice by the weight of what he can display to the world. He outworks everyone else only to trade that brutal effort for flashy status symbols that shackle him to his desk. This desperate drive to prove his worth through material flexes turns his raw labor into a golden cage, keeping him dependent on the system. True financial sovereignty requires a man to view his capital as a vehicle for absolute autonomy rather than status. When a disciplined man uses his earnings to buy back his time, he converts his sweat into unshakable freedom. A man can possess the most relentless work ethic in the world, but if his attention is fragmented by external design, his hard work will never yield financial freedom. The system is explicitly engineered to keep hard-working men distracted, diverting their focus away from building wealth and toward algorithmic noise. When a man spends his day grinding, yet allows his remaining mental energy to be mined by external forces, he unconsciously surrenders his strategic advantage. This systematic depletion of focus ensures that despite his grueling sacrifices, he remains trapped on a treadmill. Protecting your financial focus ecosystem requires an intentional boundary that treats attention as the primary engine of your sovereignty. When a disciplined man insulates his mind from these engineered distractions, he ensures every ounce of his labor funds his own vision. He stops allowing external designers to dictate his priorities, reclaiming his focus to architect the hard rules that secure his independence. A man's tireless work ethic is entirely meaningless if it is merely serving an economic structure designed by someone else. Too many men wear their exhaustion like a badge of honor, waking up in the dark to grind inside a system they do not own. They pour their lifeblood into corporate machineries or short-term gains, acting as passive passengers who assume that raw sweat alone will eventually buy them freedom. This finite way of thinking traps a disciplined man in a loop where his grueling effort only fuels a machine that profits from his compliance, leaving him with scraps of survival instead of an enduring impact. Transitioning into the author of your legacy requires a fundamental shift from a short-term grind to an infinite mindset. When a hard-working man decides to step out of the passenger seat, he stops measuring his worth by the hours he logs for another man's empire. He begins to view his daily labor not as a way to pay bills, but as raw equity to invest in his own sovereign vision. By rewriting the financial rules of his life, he channels his grit into building enduring structures that outlast him, turning raw effort into permanent freedom.